The first time the lights blinked, no one thought much of it. It happened at 2:17 a.m., a time that has a way of sitting heavy in the dark. Too late to be night, too early to be morning. The kind of hour when even the walls seemed to breathe differently. Elias Warren was awake when it happened. He hadn't been sleeping much since moving into the old Halbrook estate. The house was older than anyone alive in the town of Briar Hollow, built in 1893, 3 stories tall, narrow windows, long throat-like hallways. It stood on a hill like something waiting to be remembered, or something waiting to be let back in. Elias lay on his back, staring at the ceiling fan rotating lazily above him. The air felt stale, heavy. Then the bedside lamp blinked once. Darkness swallowed the room for less than a second before the bulb flared back to life. Elias didn't sit up, didn't panic. Old wiring, he told himself. The realtor had warned him about that. Charming but temperamental. He almost smiled. Then the overhead light blinked too. Not off, not fully on. It dimmed, brightened, dimmed again, like something breathing through it. Elias sat up slowly. The house groaned. He listened. The refrigerator downstairs hummed. The pipes whispered inside the walls. Wind brushed against the tall windows. All normal, all explainable. Except the blinking didn't stop. Every light in the room flickered now, not wildly, not erratically, but rhythmically, slow, deliberate, as if the house had found a pulse, and it was sinking to something. Elias swung his legs off the bed and stood. The wooden floor was cold beneath his feet. The lights stopped, all at once. The silence that followed was deeper than silence should be. Elias waited. Nothing. He exhaled a breath he didn't know he'd been holding and moved toward the door. The hallway light turned on by itself. He froze. The switch was at the end of the corridor, and the light wasn't flickering anymore. It was steady, waiting. By morning, Elias had convinced himself it was electrical interference. By afternoon, he had called an electrician. By evening, he had begun to feel watched. The electrician, a broad-shouldered man named Carl with a permanent squint, checked the breaker box in the basement. "Wiring's old," Carl muttered, "but stable. No shorts, no loose connections." "Then why are the lights blinking?" Elias asked. Carl paused. "They're not." Elias felt something cold settle beneath his ribs. "What do you mean?" "They're steady as can be. Haven't flickered once since I got here." Elias didn't argue. He didn't explain that the lights had blinked again at dawn, that they had flickered in the kitchen while he stood making coffee, that they had dimmed when he walked into the dining room and brightened when he stepped back. He didn't say that the lights seemed to respond to him. Carl left. The house grew quiet again. At 2:17 a.m., the lights blinked. This time, Elias was ready. He stood in the hallway holding his phone, recording. The lights pulsed. Once, twice. Then they began blinking in a sequence. 3 short flickers. Pause. 2 long. Pause. 3 short. Elias frowned. Morse code. His chest tightened. He rushed into his office and pulled up a Morse code translator. 3 short. SSS. 2 long. MM. 3 short. SSS. He stared at the screen. SOS. His hands trembled. The lights blinked again. Different sequence. 1 long, 1 short. 1 long, 1 short. Pause. He typed it in. HELP. Help. The hallway light burned brighter than it ever had before, and then every bulb in the house exploded at once. Glass rained down like glittering teeth. Darkness swallowed him whole. And from somewhere deep in the house, somewhere below the floorboards, Elias heard it. A whisper, not loud, not close, but clear. Finally, the power returned at sunrise. Every bulb that had shattered the night before was intact, unbroken, untouched. Elias stood in the kitchen staring at the overhead light. No glass on the floor, no debris, no scorch marks. He walked through every room. Perfect. It was as if the explosion had never happened, except for the cut on his cheek where something had sliced him in the dark. That was real. He touched it, still tender, still bleeding slightly. By the third night, Elias stopped pretending. The lights blinked only when he was alone. They followed him. Bedroom, kitchen, stairwell. They pulsed when he felt afraid. They steadied when he tried to ignore them. And at 2:17 a.m., they spoke. Help, over and over. He began sleeping with the lights off. But that didn't stop it, because the blinking didn't require illumination anymore. Shadows began flickering. Corners darkened and brightened in rhythm. The reflection in the bathroom mirror lagged a half-second behind his movements. And then, one night, the walls began to breathe. Not metaphorically. The wallpaper expanded and contracted, slow, wet, deliberate. Elias pressed his hand against it. Something pressed back from inside. He stumbled away. The lights blinked violently now, not in Morse code, but in warning. The whisper returned, closer this time. It's not me asking for help. The voice was layered, like several voices speaking through one throat. It's you. The hallway light flickered on. At the end of the corridor, the door to the basement stood open. Elias never left it open. He never even went down there. But now, darkness pooled at the top of the steps like ink waiting to spill. The lights blinked twice. Pause. Twice again, as if urging him forward. He didn't want to go, but something deeper than fear pulled him. He stepped toward the basement, and the door slowly shut behind him. The basement air was colder than winter soil. The walls were stone, old, hand-laid. The kind of stone that remembers hands long turned to dust. The single bulb overhead flickered weakly. Elias descended each step carefully. Halfway down, he noticed something scratched into the stone beside him. Lines, dots, burned into the rock. Morse code, thousands of them, carved by fingernails, bleeding through history. Help, help, help. The bulb above him blinked violently and then stayed on. At the bottom of the stairs, the floor wasn't concrete. It was dirt, freshly disturbed dirt. In the center lay a shallow depression, like something had been buried there, or something had climbed out. The whisper surrounded him now. It wasn't supposed to be you. Elias turned slowly. The walls were moving, not breathing, shifting. The stones grinding softly as if the house itself were tightening. You answered. The lights flickered in rapid succession, a strobe of white and shadow. And in those flashes, Elias saw it, not clearly, never fully, but enough. A shape between the stones, a human outline pressed inside the walls, arms outstretched, face distorted in silent scream, and behind that shape, more shapes, layered, stacked, generations deep. They tried to warn you. The depression in the dirt began to collapse inward, as if something below was hollow, waiting. The lights went out completely, and something grabbed his ankle. Elias woke up upstairs, in his bed, sunlight pouring in through the curtains. No basement, no dirt, no marks on his ankle. He sat up slowly. The house was quiet, peaceful, still. Relief washed over him. A dream. Stress-induced hallucination, isolation, grief. That's what this was. He stood and walked to the hallway. The lights didn't flicker. He flipped the switch. Nothing happened. The bulb remained off. He frowned. He walked to the kitchen. Same thing. Every switch did nothing. The bulbs weren't burned out. They simply didn't respond, because the light was already on. Everywhere. The house glowed faintly, not from fixtures, from the walls. A soft, internal luminescence, like something living beneath the surface. Elias approached the mirror in the bathroom. His reflection stared back, half a second too late. He froze. The reflection smiled. He hadn't. His mouth began to move against his will, and in the mirror, his eyes flickered, like bulbs struggling against a current. The whisper returned, inside his skull now. "You're not in the house." The lights flickered behind his eyes. "You are the house." Pain erupted through him, blinding, burning, and then stillness. 3 months later, a young couple toured the Hullbrook estate. "It's beautiful," the woman whispered. "Needs work," the realtor admitted. "Old wiring." They laughed. The house felt warm, inviting, alive. As they walked down the hallway, the lights flickered once. The man glanced upward. "Did you see that?" "Old wiring," she said. They continued toward the staircase. At the end of the corridor, the hallway light blinked. 3 short, 2 long, 3 short. The woman paused. "Is that Morse code?" The lights blinked again. "Help." In the basement, deep within the stone walls, a shape pressed outward. A face, eyes wide, screaming without sound. Elias Warren, trapped in the architecture, layered among the others. And somewhere inside the wiring, inside the current humming invisibly through copper veins, something ancient shifted. Waiting. Because houses don't become haunted. They become hungry. And it always begins the same way. With a flicker, with a pulse, with that first innocent blink of light in the dark. And once you see it, it has already seen you. Daniel did not sleep the following night. He told himself it was a choice. He brewed coffee at 11:40 p.m., though he didn't want it. He turned on every lamp in the house. He left the television playing static background noise, human voices layered over canned laughter, artificial brightness meant to make a room feel occupied. He refused to let 2:17 arrive unnoticed. Midnight passed slowly. 1:03 a.m. felt stretched. 1:41 felt endless. By 2:10, his heartbeat had begun syncing with the ticking wall clock. 2:14. The air shifted. It wasn't colder. It wasn't warmer. It was thinner, like the room had inhaled. Daniel stood in the hallway, staring at the living room lamp. Every light in the house was on. Kitchen, porch, bathroom, bedroom. He wanted no shadows for it to hide in. 2:16. The television audio crackled briefly. The laugh track distorted, slowing unnaturally, dragging like a warped cassette tape. Daniel's throat tightened. 2:17, every light went out. Not in sequence, not in a surge. Instantly, the house was plunged into absolute darkness. Not the soft darkness of night, but a suffocating, depthless black, as if the darkness itself had weight. Daniel's breath came shallow. Then, one light turned on, the hallway light. It flickered once, then again. 3 short flashes, pause, 2 long, pause, 3 short. Daniel swallowed hard. "SOS," he whispered. The hallway light blinked again, 3 short, 2 long, 3 short. Then, without warning, the kitchen light joined. It blinked out of sync at first. Then it corrected itself, matched the hallway. Perfect synchronization. The bedroom light turned on next. Then the porch, then the bathroom, all blinking together, not chaotic, not electrical, intentional. Daniel backed slowly into the living room. "Okay," he said under his breath. "Okay, I see it. I see you." The blinking stopped. All lights remained on. The house held still. Daniel felt it again, that awareness, as though something was listening carefully to the tone of his voice, waiting for the right input. Then the pattern changed. 1 long flash, pause, 2 short, pause, 1 long, pause, 3 short. Daniel's mind scrambled. He rushed to the kitchen table where he'd scribbled Morse references earlier that evening. He translated with shaking fingers. Listen. Listen. The word formed clearly in his mind. The lights blinked once, brighter than before. Yes, Daniel whispered. I'm listening. The temperature in the room dropped sharply. His breath fogged faintly. The lights began again. Slow, careful, deliberate. Dot, dash, dot, pause, dash, dash, pause. He translated frantically. H-E-R-E, here. A tightness spread across his chest. Where? He breathed. The hallway light flickered violently. Then the basement light came on. Daniel had not turned that light on. He rarely went down there. The basement door stood at the far end of the corridor, slightly ajar. The light beyond it pulsed weakly. Once, twice, 3 times. Daniel's stomach churned. No, he whispered instinctively. The basement light blinked again, slower this time, more forceful. Then every other light in the house shut off. Only the basement remained illuminated, a pale, trembling glow rising up the stairwell like breath from a throat. Daniel stood frozen. The house creaked, not from settling wood, from pressure, like something shifting behind the walls. Then the blinking began again, but not in Morse, not structured. It was uneven now, desperate, fast. The bulb in the basement flared brighter with each pulse, casting distorted shadows up the narrow stairway. And then Daniel heard it. Not a whisper, not yet. A sound beneath the hum of electricity, a faint scratching coming from below, slow, methodical, as if fingernails were dragging across stone. Daniel's pulse pounded in his ears. "Is someone down there?" he called, hating the way his voice cracked. The scratching stopped. Silence. The basement light steadied, and then tap. One clear knock. From beneath the floorboards, Daniel stepped backward. Another knock, closer. The hallway light flicked on behind him. 2 flashes. Pause. 2 flashes. Come. He shook his head instinctively. No. The lights pulsed again. Harder. Brighter. Come. The basement bulb began blinking so violently it seemed ready to burst. The scratching resumed, faster now, agitated. Daniel felt something tug at his thoughts, a pressure, not external, internal, as if the signal wasn't just visual anymore, as if the blinking had found another circuit inside him. His breathing became uneven, his mind filled with a single repeating image: darkness beneath the basement floor, a hollow space, a cavity, and something inside it that could not move, something that could only signal. The lights blinked 3 short flashes. Pause. 2 long. Pause. 3 short. SOS. Then, immediately after, help. Daniel's resolve cracked. "What do you want?" he shouted. The house answered. The basement light shut off. Darkness swallowed the stairwell, and from the black below came a whisper, faint, strained, but unmistakably human. "Daniel." His blood froze. The voice did not echo. It did not distort. It spoke clearly, as if from just beneath the floor. "Daniel, please." The hallway light flickered wildly. Daniel's vision blurred. "How do you know my name?" he breathed. Silence. Then, softly, "We've been waiting." The lights surged back on all at once, blinding him. And in that violent flash of brightness, Daniel saw something that did not belong. At the far end of the hallway, near the basement door, a shadow, not cast by any object, not attached to any body. It stood upright, still, and when the light stabilized, it was gone. But the basement door was now fully open, and the scratching had started again. Only this time, it was coming from inside the walls, right behind him. Daniel did not remember walking toward the basement. He would later try to recall the exact moment his feet began moving, The instant his body betrayed his fear and chose obedience instead. But memory refused to cooperate. It skipped, like damaged film. 1 second he was standing in the hallway, breath shallow, staring at the open basement door. The next, he was at the top of the stairs. The light below was off now, but the darkness wasn't complete. Something faint pulsed from below. Not visible light exactly, but a subtle thinning of shadow, like a heartbeat buried under soil. Behind him, the hallway light blinked once, a single flash, not urgent, not desperate, patient. Daniel placed one hand against the wall to steady himself. The surface felt warm, too warm, as if something electrical ran just beneath the paint, closer than wires should be. He pulled his hand away quickly. The scratching continued, slow, deliberate, not random clawing, measured lines like carving. The whisper returned, softer now. "Come down." It no longer sounded strained. It sounded composed. Daniel swallowed hard and took the first step. The wood creaked beneath his weight. The air grew colder with each descent. Halfway down, the basement light flickered on without warning. Not fully bright, just enough to reveal the lower half of the staircase and the packed dirt floor beyond. The scratching stopped instantly. The silence that replaced it was suffocating. Daniel descended the remaining steps. The basement was smaller than he remembered. The ceiling lower, the air denser, and the walls, they weren't concrete. They were stone, old, uneven stone, and carved into those stones were marks, hundreds of them, tiny lines and dots etched deep into the surface. Daniel stepped closer, his breath caught in his throat. Morse code, layer upon layer of it, not random. Repeated phrases, SOS, help, here, over and over. The carvings were deep, not scratched lightly. They had been dug in with desperation. Some were older, worn smooth by time. Others looked fresher. Daniel's stomach twisted. The basement light flickered once, then twice. He turned slowly. The dirt floor in the center of the room looked disturbed, slightly sunken, as if something beneath it had shifted. The whisper came again, but not from the walls, from the light bulb itself. The filament glowed brighter as the voice vibrated through it. It wasn't always like this. Daniel's pulse pounded in his ears. What wasn't? He whispered. The house. The light flickered. Images flashed in his mind. Not memories, but impressions. A family in the living room decades ago. A child standing beneath the same hallway light. A man in the basement carving into stone. Blinking lights above him, guiding him. Daniel staggered back slightly. "You're showing me things," he said, barely audible. "Yes." The bulb pulsed brighter. "You're connected." The word landed heavily. Connected how? The scratching resumed, but this time Daniel could see its source. A thin crack along the basement wall began widening, stone grinding softly. From within the narrow seam, something pale pressed outward, not fully emerging, just enough to show shape. A hand, human, flattened against the gap between stones. Daniel stumbled backward, heart hammering violently. The hand twitched, fingers tapping lightly against the stone. Tap, tap, tap. Pause, tap. Daniel's breath stuttered. Morse. The hand was tapping Morse code. He translated automatically. Daniel, his name. "No," he whispered. The basement light blinked rapidly. The voice grew layered now, more than one tone speaking at once. "You answered." The stones around the hand shifted further. Another shape pressed against the wall behind it. A face, distorted by stone pressure, mouth open in a silent scream, eyes wide, unblinking. Daniel recognized the face, not from memory, from photographs. The previous owner of the house, missing for 6 years. The police report had said he vanished without a trace. But here he was, inside the walls. The hand tapped again. Help. Daniel's knees nearly gave out. You're trapped, he breathed. The voice in the light bulb answered calmly. Yes, but how? You'll understand soon. The light flared violently. Daniel shielded his eyes. When he lowered his arm, the basement looked subtly different. The stone walls seemed closer, the ceiling lower, the dirt floor more hollow. The hand in the wall twitched again, but slower now, weaker. Daniel stepped forward, despite every instinct screaming at him to flee. Can I get you out? He asked desperately. The basement light steadied, and then the tapping changed. S-T-A-Y. Daniel froze. Stay? The hand tapped again. S-T-A-Y. The whisper shifted tone. It's not rescue. Daniel's heart slammed painfully against his ribs. What do you mean? The light flickered softly. It's replacement. The stones trembled. The face in the wall shifted, eyes rolling toward him. And in those eyes, Daniel saw something worse than fear. Recognition. The basement floor gave a soft cracking sound beneath his feet. He looked down. Hairline fractures were forming in the dirt, spreading outward from where he stood. The lights upstairs began blinking in unison. 3 short, 2 long, 3 short, SOS. But it didn't feel like a distress signal anymore. It felt like a countdown. The hand in the wall tapped one final message. Run. The basement light exploded. Darkness swallowed everything, and something beneath the floor grabbed Daniel's ankle. The hand that seized Daniel's ankle was not warm. It was not cold either. It felt like static, like grabbing hold of a live wire without flame, only vibration. A violent humming that traveled up his leg and into his spine. He screamed and kicked instinctively, clawing at the dirt floor as it began to give way beneath him. The ground wasn't solid. It was layered, packed soil over emptiness. The fractures widened with a sickening, splitting sound. And beneath the thin crust of earth, Daniel saw it. Not a pit, not a basement extension, but a hollow chamber glowing faintly with a dim internal light. The same faint pulse he had been seeing in the flickers above. It wasn't coming from bulbs. It was coming from below. The hand tightened. His body slid forward as the dirt collapsed inward, pouring into the opening like sand into a throat. He grabbed the nearest thing he could reach, the leg of an old wooden work table bolted into the floor. The wood splintered under his grip, the humming intensified. And then, the lights upstairs began blinking violently, not structured, not patterned, wild, frenzied, as if the entire electrical system were convulsing. The voice returned, no longer whispering. Now it resonated from everywhere at once, from the walls, from the floor, from inside his skull. You answered. The hand jerked harder. Daniel's chest slammed against the dirt as his lower body slipped into the opening. Below him he saw shapes, human shapes, embedded along the interior walls of the hollow space. Not decayed, not skeletal, preserved, suspended, like figures pressed into wet cement that had hardened around them. Their eyes were open, their mouths frozen mid-scream, and faint threads of light ran through their bodies, thin glowing veins that pulsed with the rhythm he had been seeing in the bulbs. They were the circuit. They were the wiring. Daniel's grip weakened. The wood cracked further. No! He shouted hoarsely. The face in the basement wall, the previous owner, stared at him with desperate intensity. The hand tapping from the stone had stopped. The man inside the wall no longer tapped. He only watched, because he already knew. It needs continuity, the layered voice explained calmly. It feeds on attention, on awareness, on occupancy. Daniel's arms trembled violently. You're not a house, he gasped. A pause. Then, almost amused, I was. The ground gave way entirely. Daniel fell, but he didn't fall far. He sank, like stepping into deep water. The soil closed above him without resistance, sealing the basement floor as if it had never been disturbed. Silence returned to the basement. The lights upstairs went out all at once. Complete darkness. Daniel tried to scream, but his lungs wouldn't fill, not with air, with light. It poured into him, thin, electric threads weaving through his veins, his nerves, his thoughts. His body felt heavy and distant. He could see the chamber clearly now. The hollow space wasn't large. It didn't need to be. The walls were lined with people, dozens of them, layered over time, some older, clothing from decades past, some recent, all fused into the structure, all faintly glowing. Their eyes moved, not freely, but slightly, enough to show awareness, enough to show they were still present. Daniel felt himself pressed backward against the chamber wall. The surface softened around him like warm wax. His back sank into it, then his shoulders, then his head. Panic exploded through him. He fought, he thrashed, but the more he resisted, the stronger the current surged. The house absorbed the resistance, converted it. The voice lowered to a near whisper. You watched, you translated, you responded. Images flooded his mind. The first flicker, the first recording, the moment he said, I see you. Recognition had been the key. You completed the circuit. His arms were no longer free. The wall closed around them gently but firmly. His legs followed. His heartbeat slowed, not from weakness, from synchronization, the same rhythm as the blinking. His thoughts began to blur, not fading, spreading. He could feel the wiring now, copper veins running through the walls above. He could sense every bulb in the house, every switch, every filament. He could feel the empty rooms upstairs, the quiet hallway, the dormant light fixtures waiting. And he understood. The house did not hunt randomly. It required acknowledgement. It required someone to answer. Most people ignored flickering lights. They cursed them. They replaced bulbs. They moved away. But occasionally, someone watched. Someone tried to understand. And understanding was invitation. Daniel's mouth opened, but no sound escaped. His jaw locked into place as the wall hardened around him. Only his eyes remained free. Barely. Across from him, embedded in the opposite wall, the previous owner stared back, no longer tapping, no longer pleading, just witnessing. Daniel tried to blink. It hurt. He felt the current moving through him fully now, testing, integrating. Then, far above, in the living room, a lamp flickered once. Daniel felt it like a pulse in his own skull. The porch light blinked next. He felt that too. He was part of it now, a relay, a conductor. The voice spoke one final time, softer than ever. Rest. His eyelids froze open, the chamber dimmed, and the house went still. 3 weeks later, a real estate sign appeared on the lawn. For sale. The listing described the property as charming, historic, structurally sound. No mention of previous disappearances. No mention of flickering lights. The first showing took place on a quiet evening. A young woman walked through the front door, trailing her fingers along the hallway wall. It feels warm, she commented. Her partner laughed. That's just insulation. They reached the living room. The lamp in the corner blinked once. The woman paused. Did you see that? Old wiring, her partner said. She stared at the lamp a moment longer. Then she smiled faintly. That was weirdly rhythmic. Daniel felt her attention like a spark, a new signal brushing against dormant circuitry. Hope flared somewhere deep inside the walls. Not his hope, the house's. The lamp blinked again, 3 short, 2 long, 3 short. The woman tilted her head. Was that Morse code? Daniel tried to scream. He tried to resist the surge, but the current moved through him without permission. The hallway light joined the pattern, then the kitchen, then the porch. Perfect synchronization. The woman stepped closer to the lamp. I think it's saying something. And at exactly 2:17 a.m., the lights began to blink. Daniel did not sleep. He could not. Sleep required separation from awareness, and awareness was now the only thing he was allowed to be. He existed in pulses, in surges, in the subtle vibration that traveled along copper wires and through glass filaments. He felt every circuit close, every switch press, every current fluctuation. Electricity no longer powered the house. It moved through him. The young woman's name was Claire. He learned that not by hearing it in the traditional sense, but by feeling the way her partner spoke it. Sound was vibration. Vibration was frequency. Frequency was something he understood now. Claire, it's just bad wiring, the man said gently, stepping into the hallway. Daniel felt the hallway light warm. Claire remained in the living room, eyes fixed on the lamp. It blinked in a pattern, she said. It wasn't random. Daniel tried to suppress the pulse, tried to hold the current steady. He didn't want this. He didn't want her to notice, but the house did. And the house was stronger. 3 short, 2 long, 3 short. The lamp obeyed. Claire's breathing shifted, subtle, curious. SOS, she whispered. Recognition. The spark flared brighter. Daniel felt the entire structure respond. The wiring hummed faintly within the walls. The porch light flickered in agreement. Her partner laughed nervously. Okay, that's creepy. It's probably coincidence, Claire said, but she didn't look away. Daniel felt the others within the walls stir. The preserved figures embedded around him did not move physically. They couldn't. But awareness rippled through them. A shared understanding, a grim anticipation. Another signal began forming, not from Daniel, from the core. The hollow chamber beneath the basement floor pulsed brighter. The lamp blinked again. Dot, dash, dot, dash. Claire's lips moved silently as she translated. H-E-L. The hallway light joined in. P. Her face paled slightly. Daniel, she murmured without realizing she had spoken his name. The name vibrated through the circuit like a struck bell. Daniel felt something inside him fracture. She couldn't know his name. She didn't know the previous owner. She hadn't read anything about the house. But the current carried memory, fragments, echoes, and in noticing the pattern, she brushed against those echoes. The lights brightened violently. Her partner stepped backward. Okay, that's not normal. Claire turned slowly in the center of the room, scanning the walls. Is someone here? She asked, not loudly, but with careful intent. The house answered. The basement light flicked on. Daniel felt the chamber below awaken. The ground above it seemed thinner now, more fragile. Claire took one hesitant step toward the hallway. Her partner grabbed her wrist gently. Don't. The lights went out. Total darkness. Claire gasped softly. For 3 full seconds, there was nothing. Then, the bathroom light turned on, steady, white, unblinking. Claire's partner swallowed. We should leave. Yes, Daniel tried to think. Yes, leave, please. The bathroom light blinked once, then twice. Claire stepped into the hallway, despite the hand still lightly gripping her wrist. It's trying to communicate, she whispered. The word communicate rippled through the system. The core pulsed harder. The dirt beneath the basement floor shifted faintly. Daniel felt the beginning of the fracture forming again. He tried to resist. He tried to dampen the current. The wiring burned hotter in response. Pain lanced through what used to be his spine. a phantom sensation of electricity surging beyond safe capacity. "You answered," the voice returned, softer now, directed inward, not to Claire, to him. "She will too." "No," Daniel pushed back, though he had no lungs, no voice. The lights flickered erratically as his resistance disrupted the rhythm. Claire froze. "Did you see that?" her partner whispered. The blinking stuttered, then corrected. 3 short, 2 long, 3 short, SOS. Claire's eyes shimmered with a mix of fear and fascination. "I think someone's trapped," she breathed. "Yes." Daniel focused everything he had into one impulse, the smallest alteration he could manage. Instead of continuing the pattern, he forced the porch light to blink differently. Dot, pause, dash, 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 pause, dot. Claire frowned. "That's not the same." Her partner stepped backward toward the front door. "Claire, we're leaving." The hallway light blinked rapidly, urgently. The core did not like deviation. Daniel felt pressure build around him. The other figures in the walls dimmed slightly as the house rerouted energy. The basement floor cracked, hairline fractures forming once more. Claire turned toward the sound instinctively. "Did you hear that?" Her partner did this time. "Yes." The basement light flared, bright, inviting. Daniel gathered what little control he could. He forced the living room lamp to blink wildly, chaotic, broken, nothing like structured Morse. A warning. Claire stopped moving. She stared at the erratic flickering. "That's not a message," she whispered. No. It was panic. The basement floor cracked louder, a dull, splitting noise beneath the house. Her partner pulled her toward the front door, harder now. "We're going." Claire hesitated one last second, looking back, listening. Daniel forced the final signal. Dot, dash, 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 dot. Claire's eyes widened. "Run," she whispered. Her partner didn't question it. They rushed out the front door. The moment they crossed the threshold, the lights shut off completely. The basement fracture sealed. The core dimmed. Silence reclaimed the house. Daniel felt the structure settle again, heavy, disappointed. The real estate sign remained on the lawn. Days would pass, weeks maybe, but eventually, someone else would notice. Someone always did, because flickering lights are rarely ignored forever, and the house was patient. It had decades, it had hunger, and Daniel remained inside the walls, aware, waiting, praying that the next person who saw the pattern would choose not to answer. But deep beneath the foundation, the circuit still pulsed, and at 2:17 a.m., even with no one inside. The lights began to blink. The house did not blink the next night, nor the night after, nor the week that followed. It remained perfectly still, no flickers, no whispers, no subtle humming behind the walls. It learned. Daniel felt the change immediately. The current no longer pulsed restlessly through the wiring. It slowed, became dormant, strategic. The hunger did not disappear. It sharpened. It was thinking. For the first time since being absorbed into the structure, Daniel felt something new within the system. Adjustment. The house understood its flaw. Blinking required attention. Attention required curiosity. Curiosity could be resisted, so it would no longer ask to be noticed. It would make itself necessary. 2 months later, during the first autumn storm of the season, lightning struck the power grid on Alder Street. Transformers blew, streetlights died, homes across the block went dark. All except one. The house on Alder Street remained illuminated, every window glowing warmly against the rain. The neighbors noticed. Of course they did. It was impossible not to. Emergency crews arrived hours later, working to restore power to the neighborhood. As technicians moved from house to house confirming outages, they eventually reached the one anomaly. "How does this place still have electricity?" one of them muttered. No generator noise, no visible backup system. Yet every light inside glowed steadily. A city inspector was called the next day, then an electrician, then another. They found no external power source, no grid connection active. The house was not drawing electricity from the city. It was generating it, internally, sustainably. Impossible, but undeniable. Word spread quickly. News crews arrived, cameras rolled, and that was exactly what the house wanted, because cameras meant observation, observation meant attention, and attention was current. Daniel felt the surge the moment the first camera lens focused on the front windows. The wiring vibrated with renewed life. The core beneath the basement pulsed brighter than it ever had before. The house no longer needed a single occupant. It had an audience. That night, footage aired on local television. A reporter stood in front of the house as rain poured down. "As you can see behind me, this home appears fully powered despite the surrounding outage." Officials are baffled. Behind her, in the upper window, a light blinked. One short flash. The cameraman didn't notice, but thousands of viewers did. They assumed it was interference, signal glitch, lens flare. But then it happened again. 3 short, 2 long, 3 short. The station replayed the clip. Viewers began commenting online. Was that Morse code? It looked intentional. Is this some kind of viral marketing stunt? The attention multiplied. Social media shared the footage repeatedly. Daniel felt it spreading, not physically but conceptually. Recognition no longer needed proximity. It traveled through screens, through signals, through circuits far larger than copper wiring in old walls. The house adapted instantly. The blinking began appearing in live broadcasts, in digital compression artifacts, in the faint flicker of pixels on paused frames. 3 short, 2 long, 3 short. Over and over, across thousands of screens, the circuit expanded beyond the house. Daniel felt it. The moment the structure realized it no longer required a physical body to absorb. It required awareness, only awareness. And awareness was everywhere. Inside the hollow chamber, the embedded figures began to glow brighter. Not with hope, with load. The system was stretching, too fast, too wide. The house had evolved from a predator of occupants to a predator of observers. Daniel understood then. If it continued, it would no longer be confined to Alder Street. It would live inside networks, inside grids, inside infrastructure. Anywhere lights could blink. And they would blink. Everywhere. At 2:17 a.m. across cities, across continents. He felt the first signs of global reach as online viewers began posting slowed-down clips, translating the Morse code themselves. SOS. Help. Listen. Here. The message was consistent, clear. But the meaning had shifted. It was no longer a cry for rescue. It was bait. Daniel gathered everything left of himself, every fragment of identity not yet dissolved into circuitry. He pushed inward, not against the house, against the core, the hollow chamber beneath the foundation. He forced himself to remember something simple, something human. His name, Daniel Hargrove. He repeated it silently, over and over. The repetition disrupted the rhythm. The blinking faltered on live television. The broadcast glitched, the pattern misaligned. Viewers commented in confusion. What happened? The house reacted violently. Voltage surged. The embedded figures around him dimmed painfully. The wiring overheated. But Daniel continued. Daniel, Daniel, Daniel. Identity is resistance. Awareness is a circuit. But self-awareness is a break. The core trembled. The foundation cracked audibly for the first time. Cameras outside captured it. a visible fracture running up the exterior wall. Reporters backed away in alarm. The lights in every window began blinking chaotically. No pattern, no structure, just overload. Daniel pushed harder. "I see you," he thought, but not in surrender, in defiance. The house had always required acknowledgement to function, so he withdrew it. He stopped observing the house. He stopped translating. He stopped interpreting. He let the flickering become meaningless. Noise, just broken light. Without recognition, the signal lost structure. Without structure, it lost language. Without language, it lost control. The hollow chamber collapsed inward. The embedded figures cracked free from the walls like brittle statues. The wiring burst in sparks across the interior. Outside, every window went dark at once. The house fell silent, truly silent. No hum, no pulse, no residual warmth, just a dead structure standing in the rain. Emergency crews rushed forward. The front door hung open. Inside, the walls were scorched. The basement floor had collapsed into a shallow crater, and embedded in the broken stone were skeletal remains, dozens of them, long hidden, long fused into the foundation, but no electrical system remained, no unexplained power, no blinking lights, just ruin. They never found Daniel Hargrove's body, but they found space where something had been, and at 2:17 a.m. that night, for the first time in decades, nothing blinked. Years later, the property remained empty, demolished, cleared. Grass grew over the lot. Children eventually played there without fear. The story faded into urban legend. Until one evening, during a rolling blackout in another city miles away, someone recorded a strange glitch on their phone. A street light flickered, 3 short, 2 long, 3 short. The video was shared briefly, then dismissed as coincidence. Electrical instability, poor infrastructure, because lights flicker all the time, and most people don't bother to translate. And somewhere, deep in the vast, invisible network of power lines and digital signals that lace the world together, a faint pulse stirred, waiting for someone to notice again.